Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today we have Lana Wilhelm on the line, and she's founder of CarePower Connect, which is formerly known as Stroke Caregiver Connection. Lana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, we have a lot to talk about today. So we're
We
going to get
do.
into the importance of care partner advocacy and Care Power Connect's mission. And just to get us kicked off here, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So Lana, at Mission Matters, our aim and our goal is to amplify stories for entrepreneurs, for executives, for experts. That's what we do. Lana, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me is redefining the role, the experience that a care partner or a caregiver has after a crisis, a healthcare crisis,
Hmm,
helping them not to feel alone.
yeah. It's great. Love bringing mission-based individuals on the line to share, how they do what they do, what they're doing, and really what we can all learn from that. So great to have you on. And I guess just to get us started here, what got you into this business, or what got you kind of into this field?
Well, I tell you, it happened. I can tell you the exact moment it happened.
Mm,
June 23rd, 2021 at 3 p.m. My husband had left to go to the store for me and came back into from the garage saying, something really is wrong. And from then, it just snowballed. He had a massive stroke and was rushed to the hospital. And we were in the intensive care unit, gosh, 4 weeks. Then we were in outpatient rehab, and then we
wow.
were in inpatient rehab. It was just overwhelming. And while I sat there in the room and watched my world crumble, I
Mm,
realized as a health professional myself, I had no idea the gap between being the healthcare provider and being the
mm,
caregiver,
wow.
and the loneliness and the lack of information and support. And once my husband stabilized, I
Mm,
became committed that no other caregiver or care partner would ever experience what I experienced
mm,
during that first year. And so that's kind of how it all developed. I started off first by writing a book,
mhm,
kind of a guide through the first couple of years. And then I work with a local hospital and I visit patients every week talking to them. And it's really interesting. What really got my movement really going forward
mm,
was I met with a lady one day and we were talking and she was sharing and asking me questions. And she said to me, you know, finally someone that's talking to me and not
yeah,
at me, and someone that gets it. She goes, you've got to tell everybody. And so that kind of sparked my commitment to this. I then started talking at support groups. I developed a website and then
mm,
realized that I needed to spread the word even further. And
mhm,
that's kind of where I'm at now with the podcast and the website and
yeah.
speaking engagements.
Yeah. I wanna stay on the early days a little bit longer here. I'm so
Sure.
curious. So were you and were you an author prior to this, or like an entrepreneurial type just in general? I'm just curious about that piece, because to a lot of people have experiences, but then, get very traumatic in this case. But very few go out there, write a book, create a business around it, and like start creating content. So I'm just curious, did you already have that in you, or like where'd that come from?
You know what? I think so. I've always been more the entrepreneurial type of individual.
Yeah.
In my nursing career, I had a broad base. I had done a couple home businesses, that sort of thing, and I've always done that. But
Mm,
I think I think I was born with, like I was talking earlier, with the caregiver gene, and I really feel is that I'm the type of individual. If I see a need and I know I have the skill set to impact that need,
mhm,
I jump on it.
mm.
And really, I did it for self-preservation more than anything,
Wow.
in the beginning
So
because
you mean like when you say that, do you mean like writing the book? Was it kind of like
yes,
lethargic, or like a release, or like, I don't
it
want to
was
put words in your mouth,
cathartic.
but
No, no, no. It was cathartic, but it really made me become vulnerable.
oh,
I think we as humans have the shield around us, like, oh, we can handle anything that's thrown at us. People would constantly saying, "Oh, you're so strong, and you did this, and you do this," and that's great to hear. But in reality, that shield really prevents you from moving forward, to having a new life, to having to take on a challenge and making something positive out of it. And they people always say, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, this is exactly why. If my husband and I had not experienced this, none of this would have ever happened, and the lives that I've touched would have not been touched.
Looks like we're at the tail end of a fire alarm over here, but we'll be good in like 1 second. That's why we like doing these live. We've been doing this a long time, Jai. I don't remember. We've been going live a long time, but we're about
Adam,
done with that one.
you know what, though? That is absolutely perfect for our segment. And I'll tell you why. Because what I learned with stroking the spouse and stroking the caregiver, there's no plan A, plan B. There's only a plan Z.
Wow.
So you will learn to juggle and adapt on a
Mhm.
moment's notice. And so
Mhm.
things that I thought, I laugh, I used to make notes of what I was going to get done that day. Huh. Well, you'll learn those are lofty goals.
Mm. When you were circling back to the book, so when you were done with the book, and by the way, I don't think you left the name of it, the name of the book. So I want you to give us that, of course. But
Absolutely.
when you were done with the book and you start to get out there, you start to share it. What's the response you got? I'm curious about that because whenever you put something new into the world, as you said, creating it was quite vulnerable. So now you're, putting it out there, and there's always a response. What was the response like?
Well, I had written Stroke and the Spouse. And then a year later, I followed up with Stroke and the Caregiver because there were
Mm.
so many adult children that needed more information. So, I kind of put it out there and I went to local hospitals and, shared that I felt this was a real need.
Mm.
And people kept saying yes. And I was like, "Oh, dear." And so, I got out there, I worked with this local hospital. They have now provide the book to their patients when they come in. And then people were calling me saying, "Oh, will you come and speak about this?" And I thought, you know, yeah, I've had a experience. This is what I did, but I didn't really realize, how much I had to offer back to them and how much they
Right.
had to offer to me. So I started speaking to people, and then we started setting out things for interviews, and no one says no. And so I think that's the need is so great. The other
Yeah.
thing I learned was everybody has experienced this.
Mm.
Almost everybody has. Everyone I've talked to can tell me a story of a grandparent, of a family friend,
Yeah.
uh, someone that has been thrown into that caregiver role or care partner role. And they're like, thank you for sharing,
Wow.
that we're not invisible.
Yeah. That's amazing. Maybe take a quick sidebar here for a moment. You did a rebrand recently, or you're in the middle of rebrand. So from Stroke Caregiver Connection to CarePower Connect. What kind of drove that? I want to make sure we get that in here before before we move on too far into the story. Go ahead.
Absolutely. What I found is caregiving, although it was stroke related for me, and that's kind of where my roots were,
Yeah.
it really was more, it was a broader aspect.
Oh
There's
wow.
people that,
Yeah.
things that I learned from my husband's stroke and being his caregiver and then care partner really translated across so many different diseases.
Mm.
It's really the same tools, the same tips, the same support that everybody needs, whether it's dementia, whether it's cancer,
Yeah.
just any type of thing. And so I wanted those individuals that are out there all by themselves to feel like, okay, my husband didn't have a stroke or my loved one didn't have a stroke.
Mm.
This isn't for me. But um, care power really
Mhm.
opens it up to those individuals and lets them know, hey, we're all in this together. No one's
Mm.
left, no one's left alone. We're kind of like the Marines, no one left behind. And so that's kind of where we changed it to.
Amazing. Earlier in the episode, you mentioned podcasts. Yeah, I can't let you off the line without getting into that one. So you got an upcoming podcast. Congratulations. Like,
Thank
talk
you.
to me. Talk to me.
Yes. So one of my girlfriends, I had done something. She goes, "Oh, you should do a podcast." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." So I talked to the group that I work with, and then I talked to your group, and they just made it so incredibly easy
Mm,
for someone that's not a podcast expert by any means. But I knew that I needed to be able to reach other individuals. And the whole purpose of the podcast, one, is to reach caregivers and care partners, but also the other side of the gap. Health
mm,
professionals, such as nurses and doctors, rehab facilities, hospital administrators, because if we can impact a caregiver, a care partner, we are now impacting that patient and we're preventing them from readmissions, we're preventing them from complications,
mm.
we're keeping them out of the hospital, and we're making a real positive impact on
Yeah.
the medical system. So I think the podcast will actually be able to reach two very important segments that need to
Mhm.
be reached. And it's been fun so far. Um, our first outing is with a stroke care coordinator, and he really did a great job sharing kind of what his role is and how important caregiving is. And
Mm,
I think people are going to be really excited and learn quite a bit from it.
mhm. And the name of the show?
Both sides of the bed.
How'd
And
that come up? I love the name of it. It's so
okay.
good.
Well, it is great. Well, okay, so we came up with a lot of different names and they came back and they said, "We think this is the best name." And they're like, "Both sides of the bed." I'm like, "Hmm." They're like, "You'd want something provocative." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And then when I thought about it, I had to sleep on it, actually on both sides of the bed, uh,
Stop. I can't.
to really kind of think about what does this mean? And you know what? It really has resonated because I was on one side of the bed for over 40 years, helping people making that transition home, working with individuals. I was the one that would say, "Oh, do you have any questions?" To
Mhm.
being on the other side of the bed, being the caregiver, thinking, what questions do I even have? What do other people ask? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it really captured um, what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. What is that's amazing. I love the name by the way. It's great. What
Okay.
and it is provocative. When I first saw it, I was like, wait, what kind of who's booked on the show? What? And then I was like, oh, this makes total sense. I'm like, I know, I know. Come on. We keep pretty PG-13 around here on
I
this here. I'm like,
know, I know. When they first said,
so
both
funny.
sides of the bed, I was like, and we have something provocative. I'm like, well, first off, I'm not like a provocative individual. First off,
Yeah.
but secondly, I'm like, what do people think they're going to get?
Mm,
But
that's great. It's
it's so
perfect.
funny. Everyone that I've talked to, friends and family, they're just like, "Oh, what a great name,"
Yeah.
so, you know.
I love it. Let's what's one thing just a slight diversion here. What's one thing that you wish that everyone knew about care partnership, like in understanding it and just advocacy? What's one thing you wish they'd know?
You know, um, Actually, I'm gonna cheat and tell you 2 things.
Get
One
with
thing I
me.
think you really need to know is they're not alone. That
Mhm,
although there's limited resources, there's limited support, the support that's out there is outstanding, and I'm talking
mhm.
from my own, what we have developed, and so they're not alone.
Yeah.
There is support out there, and the second thing is that they need to be heard. They don't need to be the invisible person in the room anymore.
Yeah.
They sit there, they go to the doctor's office, and they just kinda take notes, and they listen, but they're the ones that make it happen.
Mhm.
When your loved one goes back for their doctor's appointment and the doctor says, "Wow, your numbers look good," that kind of thing, that's
Yeah.
because the caregiver has been the one making sure that happens. So
Wow.
I wanna know that they are seen and that they're heard and they're not alone.
Mm. Amazing. I understand that May is Stroke Awareness Month. What
It's
does that? I mean, we have these months until you went to throughout this, obviously with your husband. I mean, it probably had a different significance. But what does that month mean to you now?
Well, prior to that, it was just another month,
Yeah.
and I really didn't think much of it. But now, experiencing that, first off, I wish I'd paid more attention when there was the
Mhm.
month of May was Stroke Awareness Month. I may have known more,
Mhm.
but I think it gives us all an opportunity to kind of sit back, catch our breath, and think, how many people are affected by this,
Yeah.
and it could happen to me at any time. It's almost 1 million people a year in the United States have a
Wow.
stroke,
A lot of
and
people.
that's a lot of people, and also they're younger and younger. We used to think of stroke as that old person's disease.
Yeah.
Great grandma had it, grandma had it, that sort of thing. It's not that anymore. We're seeing 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds with stroke. So it now has really broadened that. I think the thing that I really want people to understand during Stroke Awareness Month
Mhm.
is one, of course, prevention and identifying it. But the most important thing is that when a stroke happens to someone, it happens to the whole family. It's
Yeah.
not an individual thing, and that the caregiver is just as valuable in that avenue. And one of the things that I learned while I was in the intensive care unit was, when you bring your loved one into a hospital, that's the first time a lot of those physicians and nurses have seen them.
Yeah.
They've never met them before. But you being in that room day in and day out, you can tell them those subtle changes. You can
Mhm.
say, his speech is just not right today, where
Mhm.
they may not pick up on that as quickly. So you can prevent a lot of really bad things from happening by just being that advocate, that voice for your loved one. So I think it's just really supporting those caregivers to say, speak up, be heard. You're
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Amazing. Lana, this has been so much fun having you on today. I learned so much, and thank you for sharing about your books. Of course, I can't wait for the show to come out.
Me
And
either.
also, what's next for you? What's next for you? What's next for the overall platform? Like, talk to me.
Absolutely. So, a couple things that I'm really excited about. First is we've upgraded the website.
Mm.
When I first started the website, it looked like I started the website. Let's be honest. Okay, but then I
Love
found
your
a.
honesty there, Lana.
I mean, really. I was a nurse. Come on. So when I finally got someone that really was fabulous. And what I love about it is it's easy to navigate. It
Mhm.
gets to the point. It provides great information for that caregiver. So I'm excited about that. But the other thing I'm really excited about that we're rolling out is a caregiver course.
Mm.
Since this has been going on for a couple years, I frequently get, "Oh, can you come to my hospital? Oh, can you do this? Oh, well,
Yeah.
there's only one of me." So how do I provide that to larger audiences? And so I developed a course. It's actually about a 1.5 hour course, but it's actually broken up into 30-minute segments. And it
Mhm.
really covers kind of from start to finish all the things that a caregiver really needs to feel like they've got a handle on their care.
Yeah.
So it starts kind of like, what keeps you up at night? And we kind of talk about those sort of things. And then we talk about some of the changes you'll see in your loved one, the not just the medical, but the behavior changes, the
Mhm.
personality changes, and how you can deal with this and things you can do. It talks about how do you take care of yourself, because if you're sick and you're out of the picture, who's going to take care of your loved one? It's
Mhm.
tough. And then then there's some practical things like how to help them get back to driving if that's available. How to get them more independent, that sort of thing. So it really has been, I think it's a really great opportunity for caregivers to be able to, at midnight, log in and listen to 20 minutes when they're ready to throw in the towel, to be able to say, okay, she threw in the towel, but she picked it back up, and now I
Mhm.
can do that too.
Love it. Lana, so much fun having you on today. I learned a lot, as I mentioned. How do people follow up if they want to learn more? How do they follow your content? How do they connect?
Absolutely. The best way to connect is www.strokecaregiverconnection, all one word,
Mhm.
.com. It's a great resource. Everything you need is there, and it will connect you to me at any time. And I would love to hear from all of you.
Fantastic. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes so you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me right. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Lana, appreciate all you do and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Thank you for me being part of your mission.